You've got an inventory module built in. Now, inventory does a lot of stuff. First, everything drives from your item master record. So if your item master is not in good shape, nothing's going to work the way you want it to. So I always explain to people you got to spend a lot of time working on your item master record, getting those correct, making sure they're up to date, maintain them over time. Important things on your item master record at the header level, your item groups are 9 times out of 10 is going to determine what GL account codes you're going to hit. So at the item group level, you will actually set the GL account codes that you want to point to. So when you do inventory transactions, purchasing, receiving, movements, production, whatever, it's going to look to the item group GL account codes to determine which GL account stuff is going to hit. Other important things, in the upper right hand, you can see if you want it to be an inventoried item, you check a box. If you want it to be a sales item, you check a box. And if you want to be a purchased item, you check a box. The key things here is inventory items are the only ones that you can really use in production because they have to be issued to production or received from production. If they're not an inventory item, then you're not really going to manage the inventory in stock effectively. It's going to hit an expense account when it comes in or when it goes out and not really impact your inventory levels. Now for sales items, if you want it to show up as an item available on a sales order or any sales related document, you check the box. Otherwise, it won't be on the list you can select from. And the same thing with purchased items. Pretty basic concepts, but a lot of people get those mixed up and there can be a real pain to change after the fact. Other important things to note in the unit of measure group, they have a whole lot of options here to where you can actually define your own unit of measure groups. Like here's one called paper. And if I double click on it, and we go look at the paper group, you see that here I can actually decide for paper, 1 pack is equal to 1 pack. But 2 small packs is equal to 1 pack. And 1 6-pack equals 6 packs. So you can actually build unit of measure conversions unique based on unit of measure group assignments. This is something that's new that came out in the 9.3 and above version. Before that, they really didn't have a good way to do this other than using factors, which people hated. So they built this whole unit of measure group concept to let you build more complex unit of measure capabilities. And you can use those on sales and purchasing. So for example, if I'm using the paper group and I sell it in packs as my default sales unit of measure, when I'm on a sales order, I could actually select from the available unit of measures in my unit of measure group and have a different price for each different unit of measure type. So you could get very creative now around that. General information, probably the most important thing here is, are you going to manage it by something? The idea here is if you set something to be batch or serial managed, then it's going to basically use that as a component of the inventory. So when I receive it in, I'm receiving in a batch of X number of units. If it's a serial number, then each serial number is a unique identifier. So if a lot of companies we work with will do batch managed because they want to keep track of a batches. Let's say something has an expiration date. I receive it, I can assign an expiration date to that batch, and I can keep track of stuff that's going to expire more easily. It does add a level of complexity to your production and your general inventory management process to do batch and serialized management, but the capability is built in SAP. We always recommend don't go nuts with it. I mean, I have some people that will batch manage envelopes or packing material. I can tell you from experience, that's a little painful. But people do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have people that say they want to put their packing peanuts on a bill of material in production. Technically, you can do it, but that just means every time you produce something, you've got to issue packing peanuts out of inventory. And a lot of people hate doing that because it's just an extra step. So you have to decide how the level of complexity you're going to want to have in your inventory. On the purchasing data tab, you can set your default vendor, who you buy it from, or you can define a set of approved vendors in a group and actually put rules saying I can only buy from certain vendors from groups. I can get from more than one, but I need to get it from the people that are in my approved group. And you can see here I can choose my unit of measure code. Sales data, pretty basic stuff. What is my unit of measure that I sell it in by default? Inventory data. Here is where probably the first complex decision. When you set your method by warehouse, item group, or level, this is setting your how's it going to choose what GL account code to use. So if I choose it by warehouse, it looks at the GL account codes I've associated at the warehouse level. If I do it by item group, then it's going to look at the item group GL account codes when I do a transactions. And if I choose it at the item level, then it's actually going to look at the item itself. You can have different GL account codes set up, but then you have to maintain it at the item level, and no one wants to do that. Here you would choose your costing method. You got moving average, standard, or FIFO is what the system supports. You can also go to serial and batch managed costing. I don't recommend it. Effectively, think of it as every time I receive something, it's going to give me a different cost for every batch or serial number that I bring in, which is very accurate, but also will have a great deal of swings in your costing across the board. So most people go with moving average, FIFO, or standard. A good rule of thumb is for most manufactured parts, people use standard cost. For purchased parts, they'll use moving average because the cost might change. And that way the variances in production are more accurate. Here's where you can define your warehouses. You can see I got 5 warehouses. A function not many people realize is in here is the drop ship capability. On the warehouse level, you can actually define a warehouse as a drop ship. And what this means is that if I sell something out of the dropship warehouse, it's going to automatically assume that I am not going to take ownership of that material, and I'm actually going to create a purchase order for the vendor to buy it and deliver it to my end customer without ever coming into my physical ownership. And it will walk through that process automatically, and all you have to do is select the dropship warehouse in the row on the sales order. It creates the purchase order, it carries the customer's delivery address as the place they're supposed to send the purchased part, and does the entire process for you back to back. Another capability that's built in is bin managed warehouses. So in the system, you can define how many bins you want, how many levels you want. So you can have bin, rack, row level capabilities. You can see in this one I have 73 bins. My bin location starts with my warehouse code, which is 05. Then you see I have row A, shelf 4, level 1. So if I go to my 73 bins, you can see all my bins. And it will tell you what I have. I've got 318 items here. And I can open it up and it tells me what item it is. So the bin management capability is built in. You can define your bins. One thing that confuses everyone is they'll always see this bin location. And this is basically if I set a warehouse up as bin managed and someone receives stuff into that warehouse and does not select a bin location for it, it will put it in the system default bin. So that you know that your stuff there, you need to figure out where it really is and move it around. Planning data. If you use MRP, it's really pretty simple. If you want MRP to see it, you select MRP. Otherwise, MRP will not see it. You can define, do you make it or you buy it? That way it will tell the system, do I automatically create purchase orders or production orders? You can set order intervals if you want. You can set order multiples. Order multiples are exactly what it sounds like. If you want to buy a beer, they usually make you buy a 6-pack. You can set minimums. You could have to buy at least one 6-pack. And you can put in your lead times. And this is a calculated lead time in workdays. So if I create a purchase order for this item, I'm having the assumption that it will take 5 days from me sending out the purchase order for it to show up here. And if I'm using the MRP, it will look at that calculation and say, oh, if I need it 5 days from today, I need to order it today in order to have it in 5 days. So it looks out at when the demand is hitting and calculates backwards to tell you here is when you need to buy it or when you need to make it. Production data, this is SAP standard production. They're getting more and more BIAS-like in a lot of their functions. So you can backflush or manually issue. You can define different BOM types. You can define components and other things. And you can have your associated bill of material and other good stuff if it's a manufactured part. They don't do as much as the BIAS module still does. In another 5 years, they might. And if they do, well, you can drop one module and go with just Business One for everything. All right, properties. No one uses all of these. You get 64 properties. You can rename them whatever you want. They're just ways to check the boxes so you can have specialized reporting. That's all it is. So if I want to have a whole bunch of different categories and I can check the boxes for this stuff to group them for reporting purposes, I can define up to 64 different ones of those before I have to create a new user-defined field or anything. Remarks are exactly what you'd think. People always say, how much data can I put in the remarks field? It's 264,000 characters, so that's roughly a paperback novel you get at the airport. If you run out of space, we can add more, but that usually covers most people. And then you can attach documents. The most common thing I do here is, let's say you have a CAD system to design stuff. Many times I will connect SAP to the CAD system so that every time they do an update, it will update the bill of material and the route based on the CAD update and actually automatically attach the latest drawing document to your item master record, so you always have the latest drawing as the last one attached. All right. If you got all that working and everything's fine, then you have other stuff you can define like barcodes if you want to use barcodes. It's very simple, designed for barcodes. You have your item number, and then you can choose how many different barcodes you want. You can define it in, you can put in what the free text of the barcode is, and then you can use that for automatic printing of barcodes. So you may have a UCC 128, an EAN, or God only knows how many different barcodes, or a different barcode for every unit of measure type assigned to an item. At which point, all of that would be available, and then you could set one as a default, but then print from any of these selected barcodes assigned to any item master whenever you want to do your barcoding. Okay, so bin management, I showed you the bins are in there. Item management, this is where we start getting into things like alternatives, where you can define, and this is my item, here are some alternatives, and how close are they to being the same item, so that if they're asking for the A0001 item, I don't have it in stock, I can tell them my A002 is considered a 100% match, so it would probably do everything they want, and I could sell them that instead. You can also keep track of business partner catalog numbers, so if you have an item, and I'll just create one here, let's say I choose from MaxiTech for that item. I call it this, but they call it the XYZ 3000. Now, the cool thing about this is when they do an order, I could actually take the order based on their code or my code, and it will find the right item. So and you can do this with not just customers, but with vendors as well. So if you get a vendor catalog and you go through and match your item codes to their item codes, you could actually order from your vendors using their item codes and make sure everything matches out correctly. Other fun things is you can globally update it. So if they come in and say, you know what, I changed all my item codes, you could actually go through and do mass changes. You could replace replace only existing items, do not replace items and just add new. So you can do different types of options around that. And then your inventory evaluation method lets you look at different items and then choose different options about I want to see it doing, based on different components. And let's choose what it would look like based on different inventory evaluations. Now, the real meat and potatoes of inventory management is as your inventory transactions. And it's not that complex. BS adds a few variations on the theme, but it's pretty much the same thing. You got a goods receipts and a goods issue. So these are stock adjustments to move stuff in and out. These are the same transactions that are used when you issue materials to BS and receive from BS. It's actually using this transaction. It's just adding a row level identifier to the work order and the route. So if you want to run reports showing all goods receipts from a certain work order and position or all goods issues to a work order and position, very simple report to write, simple query. Other good ones, inventory transfer request. I want you to move something from one location to another. Now, the way I use this with a lot of customers that use BIAS is I will actually put a gadget to create an inventory transfer request from a production order. When I create the production order, you can open up the production order and hit a button, and it will look at the bill of materials and say, transfer this to the production line. That way your people in the warehouse see what they need to move to fulfill that production order without somebody having to go in and run a whole bunch of reports. So that's another capability if you want, and then all you have to do is take it and copy it to, looks like I don't have one, so I'll just create one real quick. So you can see here, I'm going to say, I want one of these. I want it from that warehouse to that warehouse. Hit the add button. And then I could pull this up and copy it to an inventory transfer, and this will actually move it from location A to location B. And just like that, it moved. So it has, I can adjust in and out. I could request you move it to a location. I could move it to that location. I could set up recurring transactions. This is kind of interesting if you have stuff that happens like once a week. If I have two warehouses and once a week I want to move X amount of goods from warehouse A to warehouse B to make sure they have enough stuff. I could actually pre-build that and it would pop up on my screen. I could just adjust the quantities and hit the add button and it would automatically pop up on my screen on like the second Tuesday of the month or whatever my plan is for moving stuff. This is where you would define those templates. Inventory counting. In SAP, you basically can define your counts. So I would pick my locations. I would say add my items. So here, for example, I'm going to select items and I'm going to say show me everything in the bin warehouse. I want all items. I want all bin locations. What this is going to do is when I hit the OK button, it's going to look and say, here's what we found in the warehouse that you need to go count and validate if it's really there. From this, I can actually print out a count sheet for them to go count. Or if you'd prefer, you can actually do this on our handheld devices, but the key is they can go and count and verify what they find. And if they find new stuff, they can add new rows. And then when they come back, you update what quantities they actually found. And then you copy it to a posting and it adjusts the inventory up and down. Okay. Which is great to do, once a month, once every 6 months, however often you want to do it. But a lot of people want to go to cycle counting. So we actually support cycle counting in the system to where you can actually define cycle count recommendations. So for example, I could define A, B, and C items. A's get counted once a week, B's get counted once a month, C's get counted once a quarter, and a D gets counted once a year. I could then add all my items to different groups, and then I could define cycles. My ones that I'm doing once a week, here are the ones I want to do on what days of the week, so I don't even have to do them all on the same day. That way you could have somebody counting something every day of the week in very small quantities. That way at the end of the year, all you really got is the D items that haven't been counted in a long time. The system will automatically prompt you what you're supposed to count based on the cycle count recommendations that you've defined. So if I'm supposed to count 5 items every day of the week based on those allocated to the A groups, every day I'm going to get a count sheet that will hit my email automatically say, go count these 5 items in these locations. Other good stuff, we got inventory revaluations. If you want to change the cost of an item, this is how you do it. Put in your item code, it shows you your current cost, you plug in your new cost, you hit the update button, and it changed your inventory value for that item. Simple as that. If you use standard costing, this is what you use to set the inventory value of an item when you first create it. So if I make a new item, you need to come to inventory revaluation, plug in the item number, and set up its cost because its current cost will be 0. And you'll put in whatever your new cost is. Gives you a starting point. So it has full price list capability. I'm sure you're familiar with most of the price lists, but I'm going to show you some fun things. So you have all these prices and you can base them on, so you can see my discount is equal to my base price times 0.5, so I'm giving you a 50% discount. Or my regular purchase price is times 0.75, so you're getting a huge discount. But if I want to do that for not everything, I could actually say, you know what, each row is based off something else. So you have the ability to adjust it or manually override pricing in price lists if you need to. Now the system supports period and volume discounting. The concept behind this is I can say, let's take my base price. I want to choose an item. And if I want to give it a special price, I can double click the row and I can say, you know what, for this time period, I can give you a different discount. Or even within that, I can give you a volume discount. And the system will look and say, what's the most complex discount you get that will apply based on the rules? And if it's hitting a certain volume within a certain time period, I get that discount. If not, it looks here, I get this discount. If not, it looks here and says, oh, your base price equals X, and that's what discount I get. So it will actually do that math and look at the most complex discounting and work its way down until you have nothing but the base price list. You can define discount groups, so you can say by item groups or whatever you want. I think I have to choose something about a business partner. So you can see for this business partner, I can choose a discount by my item groups. That way they get a % discount every time they choose an item that's in that group. Or I could use any of the 64 properties on the items and give them a discount off of that. Or I could look at the manufacturer defaulted to an item and give a discount percentage based on that. Or I could just pick out specific items unique to a specific business partner. So again, you can get pretty flexible. We have special prices by business partners. The idea here is I have a contract price. So with Maxitech, for the JB printers, they get a special discount. Instead of it defaulting to the base price list, I'm going to give them an extra 10%. That way, they get the regular price when they order anything not on their contract price. But if they do something that's under the special contract price, they get the special contract discount. And then once you get all that in place, you don't want to have to go into each one every time and do an adjustment. So it lets you do massive updates if you do like a sweeping change. All my prices are increasing by 5 or 10% or whatever. It even has a wizard to help you go through the price update. Now another function that's pretty clever, the pick and pack manager. Now with BIAS you don't really use this because it doesn't create the standard production order in Business One. You don't use the production process. But I can use it for sales orders that I need to ship out or inventory transfer requests. So if I need to look at sales orders, I hit the OK button and it comes back and says, here's all the stuff that you need to send out. Now you can put different parameters and it will show you what you want to see. But the most important thing is it's going to show you what needs to go out based on sales orders in the system, the delivery date when it should have gone out. And you can see I'm late on everything. It shows how much is needed and it shows how much you actually have available to ship if you wanted to create delivery notes. And from this, I can release it to a pick list. And then from that, they can go and pick it in the warehouse and create the delivery notes. And the pick lists are pretty straightforward. Whatever gets released goes to a pick list, and then the people can go and confirm what they picked out of inventory to put on the truck. And then from this, they can actually just click the create, and you can create the delivery note from your pick list once you've got it picked, and it will put it on a delivery or put it on a transfer if you're going to move it someplace. And then finally, we have a ton of inventory reports, and I mean just a ton. Items, open items, drafts, last prices, inactive. One that comes up a lot that I end up doing a lot with is you'll see things like, God, what is it? The inventory audit report. Financials likes to look at this quite a bit when they say, show me what happened to this item throughout the month. So I can choose a system date of you know what, I'm going to look back in the past a bit. Then I can choose whatever items I'm interested in. We'll just see how often I move that one around. And I'll hit the OK button, and it's actually going to look and say, here's everything that happened to that item in that time period. And you can see here's where I started with this cumulative quantity, my opening balance, and you can see then it starts moving in and out transactions all the way through until I get down to what I currently have in stock as of right now. And anything I have a question on, I can just click the orange arrow and I can actually see the transaction that popped up. Here's my goods receipt where I received in a whole bunch. So this one comes up a lot at the month end or year end when they're trying to figure out why you have big inventory swings. You can take the period they're looking at, you can take the item that they're interested in, and you just hit the OK button and it will show you every transaction in and out from that starting date till the end date, and you can go back and drill in on any one of them. This comes up a lot at month end when they start asking questions. So there's my 10,000 foot overview of inventory.